Hello, lead trainer Chris here, and in this video we're going to look at various aspects of teaching online. And for those of you watching the series of virtual Vantage videos, this is the second video about online teaching. Now, when we're teaching online, we have to consider not only what we're going to do and what the students are going to do, but we also have to think about how we're going to do it effectively. And so this video looks at some differences and indeed some similarities between teaching in a real classroom and teaching in a virtual classroom. Now, if after watching this video you can think of any aspects that I haven't covered, then please tell us in the comments below. And if you do find any of this helpful, then please give us a like and subscribe to our latest videos. Okay. Okay. And so this is called online teaching versus classroom teaching. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one, which is lesson content. And what I mean by lesson content, this is typically the language work that you'll have. We will look at visuals and worksheets a little later in this video. But for now, let's look at, say, the language work that you're going to do. And the language work can be, as we've seen before, vocabulary or grammar or both. Okay, so in a real classroom, you can present the language content either on the whiteboard or by PowerPoint or similar, Keynote, Google Slides, whatever, or indeed often a combination of both. Now, a virtual classroom is in fact not so different. You can use Zoom's whiteboard. You can use PowerPoint, as indeed I'm doing right now. And both of those you can share with your students by sharing the screen. Now, my advice here is to have any pre-prepared language work on PowerPoint and limit the whiteboard use to things that you elicit from the students and that you want to write down. So, for example, a list of vocabulary items outside of your vocab set, but words that they know. Okay. Okay, I mentioned visuals earlier. Okay, so again, in a real classroom, the teacher can show visuals a number of ways. Okay, they could show the students the real object. Okay, they could show pictures or flashcards. They could have an image slideshow or a PowerPoint slideshow projected onto a big screen. And typically the most effective way is indeed to have projected images. Again, in a virtual classroom, it's pretty much the same. As in, the most effective way is to project the image. So make an image slideshow, again, or a PowerPoint slideshow, and share your screen. You could have a physical picture held up to your webcam, but that won't be as effective. Okay, moving on to worksheets. Okay, as we've seen before, the practice exercises that you do in the study stage of your lesson, they will be worksheets. Okay, so In a real classroom, these are typically given as handouts. However, in a virtual classroom, you can't physically give handouts. And the best way to deal with this is open the document on your computer and then share your screen. Zoom does have a function where you could send or transfer the document to students, but try and avoid that, because if you have any students, excuse me, if you have any students that are using Zoom on a mobile device, a tablet or a smartphone, then unfortunately they cannot download the document. Okay, so just to make sure that everybody has it, that everybody sees it, then have the exercise showing on your screen. Okay, and students can write their answers on a piece of paper that they have with them. And we'll look at checking answers a little bit later. And so when you're doing your lesson planning and preparation, you need to think about whether the students can do certain types of exercises this way. In fact, most exercise types can be done like this, but there are a few that can't. For example, word searches. So think about how those types could be done instead. And then we'll discuss that when we actually come to help you in your lesson planning and preparation. Okay, moving on to grouping students. Okay, when we want to have students working in some kind of formation. Now, in a real classroom, there are a few groupings that we can have. We could have students working individually. We can have students working in pairs. We can have students working in small groups. And we can have students working as a whole group. Now, in fact, for a virtual classroom, we can indeed have students working individually. Okay, and you would obviously just keep the class as it is and have each student working on their own on whatever exercise it is. We can indeed have them working as a whole group, which typically involves some kind of discussion first before they do whatever it is, exercise or activity. Now, for pair work, we can certainly have the students working in pairs, but we're going to have to do something a little bit different here. The Zoom platform has a function called breakout rooms. And essentially what this is that you are taking the classroom and you are splitting it into smaller rooms. Okay, so what you would do is you would have each pair in a separate breakout room. Okay, and that way, the students are working only with their partner in that room, and they are not disturbing any other students in the other breakout rooms, and they're not being disturbed by them either. And indeed, we can use the same for small groups. Again, split the class into a suitable number of smaller rooms, breakout rooms, and assign each small group into a separate room. Okay, you can also assign the breakout rooms a time limit corresponding with the time limit of the exercise or activity. And at the end of the time limit, everyone sort of gets back together in the main virtual class. Okay, a word about timing. Okay, timing can be a little bit different here. Okay, when you're in a real classroom, you basically have time for sort of lengthy explanations or stories, etc. Although don't make them too long, of course. Students can get bored. The problem with students studying at home is that they have many things that can possibly distract them. So avoid lengthy stories or explanations. These will give the students an opportunity to wander away, maybe not physically, but at least mentally. And for the same reason, avoid lengthy periods of silence. When you're in the real classroom, you don't need to tell the students everything that you're doing. Okay, they can see it. Okay, so if you're going to the computer to start an image slideshow or anything like that, they can see what you're doing. Okay, however, in a virtual classroom, they can't. Okay, so add a layer of disclosure here. Okay, communicate those bits of kind of behind the scenes information. As I say, this would often be redundant in a real classroom, but let your students in on what you're doing, particularly if you have to pause for a moment while you're doing it. Okay, so first of all, you could tell the students that you're going to take approximately, however long it may be, 30 seconds or a minute, whatever duration you need, but try not to make it more than a minute. And tell them that they won't hear any audio in that time, and they may see a series of changes on the screen. Okay, so you're going to bring something else up on the shared screen. You're going to change the slideshow, whatever kind of glitch is about to occur. Secondly, you can reasonably assume that half of them weren't really listening to that anyway, and so you can put the same information into a chat window. And we briefly saw that chat function in the last video. Also, in a real classroom, when you're eliciting answers or information, it's okay just to stop and wait for the answer while the students are thinking about it. Okay, but in a virtual classroom, don't wait as long as you would in a real classroom when you're eliciting those answers or information. Okay, if there is no answer forthcoming, step in and prompt if necessary. Moving on to correcting and giving feedback. Okay. So in a real classroom, we want to strive to give verbal corrections and feedback rather than written. Well, it's very much the same in a virtual classroom. It is possible to give feedback via private chat message, but firstly, you spend unnecessary time typing that out. And secondly, it's easy for students to misinterpret the tone of writing, which can come across as harsher than spoken feedback. Okay, so in a virtual classroom, make it verbal feedback and corrections as well. Okay, so that's really it for the aspects of teaching. With practice, you can make a virtual lesson and by extension, a virtual course work very effectively. Okay, so the key is 3 Ps: plan, prepare, and practice. And as I've said before in a previous video, if you do need any sort of further advice or help on anything, and in this case, how to do things in the virtual classroom, then please contact me on my email address shown here. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you, and I will see you on the virtual course. Bye.